The whispers beneath. The parchment crackled like old bones as Princess Zelda unfolded it in the dim candlelight of her private study. The letter bore no seal, no signature, only words that made her blood run cold. They know about the bloodline. The Umbral Court rises. Trust no one within the castle walls. Your Highness, Impa's voice cut through the silence like a blade. The Sheikah warrior emerged from the shadows, her red eyes gleaming with concern. You received another? Zelda nodded, her fingers trembling slightly as she set down the missive. 3 months had passed since the first warning arrived, and still she could identify neither sender nor threat. The kingdom of Hyrule had known peace for decades, yet something ancient stirred in the darkness beyond the castle's protective wards. Gather Link and Midna, Zelda commanded, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her veins. Tell them to meet us in the old sanctuary beneath the castle. And Impa, bring the lens of truth. The catacombs beneath Hyrule Castle had been sealed for generations, their existence known only to the royal bloodline and their most trusted guardians. As the 4 companions descended the spiraling stone steps, their torches cast dancing shadows that seemed to writhe with malevolent life. I still think this is folly, Link murmured, his hand instinctively moving to the Master Sword's hilt. The blade had been humming with unusual intensity lately, as if sensing some approaching darkness. These tunnels have been sealed for good reason. The reason was never documented, Midna interjected, her twilight form flickering between corporeal and ethereal. That alone should concern us. What did your ancestors fear so greatly that they buried it in silence? Zelda paused at a junction where 5 tunnels converged, each marked with symbols that predated the kingdom's founding. The air here felt thick, oppressive, carrying whispers in a language that made her soul recoil. The Umbral Court, she said quietly. They were the shadow nobility, Hylians who delved too deeply into forbidden magic during the Age of Chaos. My great-great-grandmother, Queen Sonia, ordered them executed, but she traced one of the carved symbols with her finger, feeling it pulse with cold energy. But their bodies were never found. A sound echoed from the central tunnel, not quite footsteps, not quite breathing, but something that suggested movement in the darkness ahead. Impa raised the lens of truth, its crystalline surface beginning to glow with pale blue light. By the 3 goddesses, she whispered. Through the lens, the tunnel walls revealed their true nature. What appeared to be solid stone was in fact a vast network of chambers carved from black obsidian, their surfaces covered in writhing shadows that had achieved a horrible semblance of life. And moving through those shadows were figures in tattered royal finery, their faces twisted into expressions of eternal hunger. They've been waiting, Zelda breathed. All this time they've been waiting. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and now they could make out words. Blood of kings, blood of queens, the covenant must be fulfilled. What covenant? Link demanded. Drawing his sword, the Master Sword's light pushed back the encroaching darkness, but the shadows seemed to absorb its radiance, growing stronger. Zelda's mind raced through half-remembered histories, fragments of lore her tutors had glossed over or dismissed as superstition. Then with dawning horror, she understood. The Triforce, she said. They're after the Triforce, but not to claim it, to corrupt it. If the royal bloodline falls to shadow magic, the sacred power becomes tainted at its source. A figure emerged from the central chamber, tall and gaunt, wearing a crown of black metal that seemed to devour light. When it spoke, its voice was like silk over broken glass. Princess Zelda, last daughter of the accursed line, how long we have waited for you to come to us willingly. I came to stop you, Zelda replied, raising her hands as golden light began to gather around her fingers. Whatever dark bargain you made, whatever curse you've become, it ends here, the Shadow King laughed. A sound like winter wind through dead leaves. You misunderstand, child. We are not your enemies. We are your inheritance. The royal family's power has always come with a price. Light cannot exist without shadow, order without chaos. We are the balance that was cast aside, the necessary darkness that your bloodline refused to acknowledge. Your parasites, Midna snarled, her twilight magic swirling around her like liquid starlight. I know shadow magic, and what you've become is an abomination even by my standards. The Umbral Court began to advance, their forms shifting between human and something far more terrible. As they drew closer, Zelda could see the truth of their nature. They were not undead, but something worse. They had become living voids, creatures that sustained themselves by devouring light, hope, and life itself. Impa, the barriers, Zelda commanded. The Sheikah warrior began weaving complex hand signs, summoning protective wards of silver light. But the shadows pressed against them hungrily, and Zelda could feel the barriers weakening. You cannot hold us forever, the Shadow King hissed. We are part of you, princess. The darkness that lurks in every royal heart, the cruel decisions made for the greater good, the lives sacrificed on the altar of duty, we are what remains when nobility strips away its pretenses. That's not true, Link said fiercely. placing himself between the princess and the advancing shadows. "Zelda is nothing like you, isn't she?" The Shadow King's hollow eyes fixed on Zelda with terrible knowing. "Tell me, princess, how many subjects have died for your decisions? How many soldiers have you sent to their deaths? How many times have you chosen duty over compassion, order over mercy?" Zelda felt the golden light around her hands flicker. The accusations struck deep because they carried the weight of truth. Every ruler made such choices. Every crown was built on necessary sacrifices. "The difference," she said finally, her voice growing stronger, "is that I remember their names. I carry their weight. You've forgotten what it means to be human." She raised her hands, and this time the light that emerged was not the pure gold of the Triforce's power, but something more complex, shot through with silver threads of sorrow, crimson veins of sacrifice, and deep blue currents of unwavering resolve. "This is the true power of the royal bloodline," Zelda declared. "Not perfection, but the strength to bear imperfection and still choose hope." The light struck the Shadow King, and he screamed, not in pain but in recognition. For a moment his features clarified, becoming almost human again. "Sonia," he whispered. "My sister." "I remember, Lord Noctis," Zelda said gently, recognizing him now from the ancient portraits. "You were my great-great-granduncle. You loved your people. You died protecting them from the darkness that consumed the outer provinces." "No," he said, his form beginning to solidify. "No, I became the darkness. I made a pact. To save them you became lost," Zelda said. "But lost things can be found." She extended her hand, and her light enveloped not just Noctis but all the Umbral Court. One by one they began to remember who they had been. Not monsters, but people who had made terrible choices in desperate times, who had been consumed by the very darkness they sought to control. As dawn broke above the castle, the shadows in the catacombs finally found peace. The Umbral Court dissolved into silver motes of light that drifted upward, seeking their long-delayed rest. "It's over," Impa said, but her voice held uncertainty. Zelda shook her head. "No, this was just one battle. The darkness that created them still exists, in every difficult choice, every moral compromise, every moment when duty and conscience clash." She looked at her companions, her friends who had followed her into the depths without question. "But so does the light that can overcome it." Link sheathed the Master Sword, its humming finally quiet. "What happens now? Now we remember," Zelda said. "We remember that rulers are human, that power comes with a price, and that the greatest strength lies not in avoiding the darkness, but in choosing to kindle light despite it." As they climbed back toward the surface, Midna glanced back at the sealed chambers. "The tunnels will remain?" "They must," Zelda replied. "Future generations need to know what we're capable of becoming, and what we can choose to be instead." The morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows of the great hall as they emerged, painting rainbow patterns on the stone floor. Zelda paused at the threshold, feeling the weight of her crown not as a burden, but as a reminder of the light she had chosen to carry. Behind them the whispers had finally fallen silent. But in the depths of every shadow, in the heart of every difficult decision yet to come, they waited still, not as enemies now, but as teachers, reminding each new generation that the price of light is eternal vigilance against the darkness within.